One fine day in June, I got out of the Church Avenue station of the BMT with my Marine Corps sea bag and suitcase, took several intoxicating breaths of the pickle-fragrant air of Flatbush, and walked down blocks of gently greening sycamores to the rooming house of Mrs. Yetta Zimmerman.
I like to see my tenants enjoy life. They're young people, my tenants, and I like to see them enjoy life. Not that I don't gotta have rules or anything.
The diction was in some form of English, garbled and exotically accented, but I had no need to know the words. What resulted was impressionistic. Male and female, the two voices comprised a cheering section, calling out such exhortations as I had never heard. Later on, Sophie and Nathan were embroiled in combat just outside the door of my room. I heard them battling in the hallway as I walked up the front steps.
Don't give me any of that, you hear? You're a liar, you hear me?
You're a liar too, I think.
I am not a liar! When are you going to learn to speak the language? A prick I might be, but not a liar. You moron, a two-timing, double-crossing jerk!
Nathan, listen. Don't go. We need each other.
Need? I need you like any insufferable disease I can name. I need you like death.
That Nathan, I've never seen anything like him in my life. How can he talk like that to anyone?
Well, he's right about so much. When he said I didn't dress right, or when he said I was a sloppy Pole and didn't clean up. Then he called me a dirty Polak, and I knew that I deserved it. Stingo, wake up! Wake up, Stingo!
Rise and shine.
Get out of here. Leave me alone.
Let's have a coffee together and make up and be pals.
As I spent more time with them, I thought how wonderful it was to happen upon Sophie and Nathan, these warm and bright and lively new companions, and the urge I had to reach out and hug both of them close to me was freighted with the mellowest brotherhood, cleanly, practically devoid of carnal accents. I felt close to total salvation. I allowed myself to plunge on toward Coney Island, thus making sure to help fulfill Sophie's prophecy about the three of us, that we would become the best of friends.
When Casimir and I were married, we had these plans to go to Vienna like my mother and father did. It was going to be very much like the way they done their study. But that year there came the Anschluss, and the Germans went into Vienna. It began to be very frightening, and my father said we were certain to go to war. I remember so well that last year when we were all together in Krakow. Somehow I still could not believe that this life we all have together would ever be changed. I was so happy with Kazak, and loved him so very much. Oh, I knew Kazak knew I loved him still, and I knew he loved me. But somehow it was all the worse that he must have suffered too, from not reaching me to say it, to communicate that we love each other. So Stingo, I have lived along with this strong guilt, which I can't lose, even though I know it has no reason. Like that Jewish woman in Sweden said, when she tried to make me see that the love we had was the most important thing, not the silly fight.
Those first months, Sophie was alone a great deal of the time. Her difficulty with the language made her shy, but even so she was content to be alone a lot. After having talked to Sophie more often, deep in the ground and surrounded by thick stone walls, the basement of Haas's house where Sophie slept was one of the very few places in the camp into which there never penetrated the smell of burning human flesh. This was one of the reasons that she sought a shelter as often as she could, despite the fact that part of the basement reserved for her straw pallet was damp and ill-lit and stank of rot and mold.
I got good grub for you ladies this morning.
At least tomorrow I will see Jan. At least that. Why are you crying? I don't know. And because I have a little boy in Camp D, and because your father, Haas, tomorrow is going to let me see him. He is almost your age.
What happened to Jan? Of all the things she had told me, the unresolved question of Jan's fate was the one which nagged at me the most. I think I must have absorbed, then pushed to the back of my mind, her odd, offhand mention of Ava's death, her other child.
I got a message a few weeks after from Wanda at Birkenau, through this prisoner of French resistance woman who came to the barracks. The woman said that Wanda had told her to say to me that Jan was gone from the children's camp. And this for a short time filled me with joy until I realized that it really meant nothing, that it might only mean that Jan was dead. not sent to Lebensborn, but dead of disease or something.
During the time Sophie had told me accounts about her past, we had distanced ourselves from Nathan, but Sophie evidently went back to Nathan in Boston, and I would later find out they both committed suicide. I blinked in the dim light, then gradually caught sight of Sophie and Nathan, where they lay on top of the bright apricot bedspread.
I wouldn't look at their faces if I were you. But they didn't suffer. It was sodium cyanide. It was only a few seconds.
To my shame and chagrin, I felt my knees buckle and I nearly fell, but Larry grabbed and held me. We buried Sophie and Nathan side by side in a cemetery in Nassau County. There had been worries. After all, a Jew and a Catholic in a suicide pact, unmarried lovers dwelling in sin, suggestive beauty, and good looks.